Hello and a very warm welcome to TV47. This is New Week. My name is Elengari. Tonight we have a lot to discuss in regards to the coronavirus outbreak. Of course, a little bit of looking at the global and regional aspect of what is happening. And also here home in Kenya, of course, I have my able panel. And in studio we have Ruth Mbogo, who is a governance specialist. And also we have Maina Karobia, who is a political analyst. And also we have Kelvin Kea, who is the CEO of Youth Agenda. How are you guys doing?
Very well.
Ruth, it's good to see you.
Yeah.
After you kept away from us a long time.
I needed to, calm down.
You needed a break.
Yes.
But even talking to you earlier, you were saying you were kind of concerned about this outbreak of the COVID-19.
Yes.
And of course, it's understandable, in this particular time. Also, Maina, how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
What's happening with you? How is quarantine taking you?
Quarantine is good.
It's good.
I'm cooperating with the government directives, so that we can contain this coronavirus.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Kelvin, good to see you. Having been a gentleman who works closely with the youth, I mean, what do you think, by the way, is happening to the youth right now, especially in anything that you had as an agenda for them in this coming month?
Well, thank you very much, Leah, for inviting me in the show and to meet my colleagues, Maina and Ruth. This issue is really a thorn in the flesh, and it's going to affect our young people really bad. The population globally is actually youth. So when you're talking about consumers of food, they're youth. When you're talking about workers, those who are in job, they are young people. When you're talking about the people who will be doing, for example, the Big Four agenda, they're young people. So you're looking at, if this thing proceeds maybe for 1 or 2 months, we're going to have an economic crisis. Young people are also in school. Most of them are in university. What is going to happen to them? Are the lecturers, are the institutions prepared to really address their issues post-study? Young people are also in sports. So we are looking at a crisis, and we will not be able to sustain it. I think we might find a situation whereby young people actually are demanding for certain services because they will be pressured by their needs.
Well, thank you so much, Kelvin, for those reviews. And we do hope to address a little bit more about the impact it has on young people, especially education, as Kelvin has mentioned. However, right now, I want us to look at South Africa. Of course, we know coronavirus is a global concern, and coronavirus cases in South Africa have risen by over 25, bringing the total number of infections to a number that, of course, many people are very concerned about, and that is over 25. Well, we are seeing right now that the number of infections has gone to 116, as the government confirmed in South Africa. The government also reported that over 100 South Africans repatriated from Wuhan, China, have all tested negative for COVID-19. Earlier on, we did speak to Ronald Miller, who is a church minister in Johannesburg, South Africa. Let's listen in. We're now joined by Ronald Miller, all the way in Johannesburg in South Africa, to give us at least a feel of exactly what is happening in South Africa as far as the coronavirus is concerned. Ronald Miller, I mean, there's so much happening globally. What's happening in South Africa at the moment?
Well, I think there's just a measure of uncertainty in South Africa. Nobody knows what's going on. We are being addressed by the president tonight. So I think it's just a really climate of uncertainty. Nobody knows. Everybody is scared of even leaving their houses. So it's a lot of fear and uncertainty, if I can describe it in those two words.
All right. So what directives has the South African government given so far to try and contain the coronavirus outbreak?
I think they have, there's just a lot of organizations that are being asked to kind of shut down. A lot of people are requested to work from home. Where churches are concerned, we are confined to about 100 people per service, but I think that will change tonight. So I think it is, regulating how many people can gather at one place. Also the 1 meter space between two people. That is maintained at a lot of places, a lot of shopping malls, so that 1 meter in between people that's maintained. But we will see, and obviously the schools are closed, so the kids are, from last week, Wednesday, they've been at home. So a few measures, but I think tonight will probably indicate that the government is much more aggressive in the response. Right now, we're at about 274, if my memory serves me right. So that has escalated overnight. So the government is being proactive, but I think tonight will probably indicate that there's even more things that the government will be doing.
When you say,
concerning the.
When you say that there's probably a little bit more that the government will do in regards to worship places like churches and whatnot, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think right now the numbers are at 100. We find in Johannesburg that a lot of churches are closed. They're not going to take that chance, even with 100 people or 50 people. So I think what is going to happen probably with government, what they will be doing tonight is just to say churches will probably have to close their doors, until, I'm not sure in terms of the time frame, but I'm sure that the new regulation will come out that this will prohibit any gathering of any sort of a church. A lot of churches are doing that, but for safety's sake, I don't think that churches needs to be opening their doors. A lot of people speak about faith and all that, but it is safety first.
Where are you right now, by the way? Are you at home?
No, I'm at work. Mm-hmm. I'm actually the only one in my office. So there's actually, a move toward remote working. But I come in, there's a few things I have to do, but a lot of people are just working remote. They don't want to be on the streets. They want to be with their families, closed doors. And I think the regulation, somebody's talking about a shutdown, but I don't know. But I'm at work yet.
Well, finally, how do you feel about what's happening right now globally and also in South Africa? You have to do some bit of self-quarantine. How is that working for you right now?
For me personally?
Yes. And your family.
I think it's a good thing. I think there's a lot of good things coming out of this quarantine. SA, like a lot of countries where there's technology taking over, we have lost our family values. People are kind of lived past one another. So I think it's a good thing where people are forced to spend more time with one another. I think it's really a time for me to rethink my life, things that's going in my own life, my family's life. It's a time of really introspection for me personally. So I think it's good because we're kind of running, we're moving too quick. So I think we need a time of pausing and kind of re-evaluating our lives and seeing where we are. So for me personally, it's not a bad thing. People are going crazy here in SA in panic buying. They buying like mad people. I don't think we're going to get to that place as a family. But I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing for the family unit, for the individual. I think it's a good thing. It gives us more time to think about our own lives. So I value this time.
Well, thank you so much, Ronald Miller, for your sentiments. We do hope that you continue keeping safe, you and your family. Thank you for your time. We appreciate your effort to reach out to us as well and be able to tell us what's happening in South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, that was Pastor Ronald Miller, all the way in Johannesburg, South Africa, just giving us an update of what is happening in South Africa. Of course, as you've heard, he says it's not all gloom and doom. There's something positive, even as we remain self-quarantined. Well, let's get back to the discussion in studio. Well, guys, listening to what Ronald Miller there is saying, he's talking about church gatherings are still going on in South Africa. Of course, we know that this was a concern in Italy, which perhaps many people have pegged on the increment of the number of cases of coronavirus. I'll just start with you, Ruth. What do you think about proceeding with church gatherings? We've seen the same thing happening in Tanzania.
Well, one thing that I totally could not understand with Christians, especially this particular Sunday, was the sudden, importance of going to church. And I remember I had a conversation with a young person, and I was telling them that, look, On a normal Sunday when there's no crisis going on in the country, when you're feeling tired or something comes up, a family member is unwell, you would literally stop going to church to attend to whatever issue comes up. But then suddenly when there's a crisis, now we want to throng church places. Remember in South Korea, a patient who has been famously referred to as patient 31 has been the reason or the cause for over 3,000 persons within South Korea contacting the virus. And this person went to a church, went to 2 church meetings over 2 Sundays, and as a result of that, with the few people that they got to interact with, they were able to spread the virus to over 3,000 people. I remember coming across a quote from the late Martin Luther King during the Black Plague when he mentioned and said that, look, as a Christian, I know that I owe my allegiance to God and I believe in God, and failing to go to church or suspending church for that particular period of time does not mean that his faith in any way would be reduced or would be, diminished in any way. So I think that we really need to listen to what the government is saying. Imagine going into a church building that has over 100 or 150 people shaking hands with a sign of peace, especially for churches that, for example, observe peace or that are used to shaking hands, or even right now that we have been given new directives that the virus is actually airborne as well. Imagine sneezing or somebody literally breathing next to you or
Indeed,
touching something and the virus spreads.
There, yes. Ruth. Indeed, a matter of concern. I just want to hear from you, Maina. Where do you draw the line between faith and objectivity?
You see, one thing there is that Africans are notoriously religious. And you see, back in history, if you look at 1905, how Tanzanians tackled the issue of German colonialism, they were actually told by Kinjete Ngwale that if they smear themselves or if they drink some water that is mixed with millet seeds and castor oil, they are going to turn the German bullets to water. So the issue of African and religion, they always cling on something that is going to give them hope. And that's why you are seeing, even in Kenya, people who are very learned, the literacy rate in Kenya is at a very high rate. But these citizens, they will not listen to what the government is saying. They are going to cling on that hope that the supreme being is going to solve their problems. But at the same time, the Bible says that may people perish because lack of knowledge. So the same Christians or the same religious Africans, they are applying the God's teaching selectively. They are not reading it wholesomely. So I think for me, on the issue of tackling this virus, the African governments should actually now start employing security operators, instruments, so that they can tackle this issue. This issue is going to escalate. Now then you have to bear into mind that Africans, they like convergence. They like that coming together. So even as much as we try to issue directives that they should they should distance themselves, there should be an implementing agency or some implementing instruments to make sure that the government directives are followed to the letter.
Kelvin, just before we take that fast break we're about to take right now, Kelvin, I just want to hear from you. If I can just play the devil's advocate. Perhaps someone is saying, my faith tells me that God is able to protect me. And, even if I go to church, I know there's that shield. I mean, we can also say, I plead the blood of Jesus and nothing will happen to me. Many of them are thinking that way. But can we just try and make sense of this so that people can take necessary action? Kaya, what do you have to say?
Well, I want to say that personally I'm a Christian, and sometimes we have to really take responsibility on the things that we take. I want to echo Maina when he said that in the Bible it's written that my people perish because of lack of information. We need to be a responsible citizen and abide by the rule. At this time, we are not competing. We are looking at the best way possible, collective approach that can help us deal with this scourge. We need to cooperate. I would want to challenge the church that yes, we need nourishment, we need to go to church, we believe in God and God is all omnipotent. We need to be innovative. We can use IT to spread the word. We can this is the time now for churches to begin thinking, can they have their own TV stations? Can they have their own radio stations?
And in this case, digital TV stations.
Yes, digital TV stations, so that they can pass their messages. And then the congregation, they can have chances also to respond, and if at all they want to ask questions, they can ask via the social media. And if it's about tithes and offering, I think there is online money, so things can still happen. Thank you.
All right, I want us to take a short break. When we return, I want us to cross over to Rwanda, to our correspondent down in Kigali, that's Dana Iriza. We'll be talking to her a little bit more about what's happening since the lockdown that was introduced in Rwanda. So let's take a short break, but remember you can engage us through our social media platforms. That is TV47KE on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Tell us also where you're writing from, so don't go too far. New Week will be back shortly. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching New Week right here on TV47 tonight. All matters coronavirus, the development, what is happening regionally and globally. And again, I'll just tell you that I have a very able panel. I have Ruth Mbogo, who is the governance analyst and specialist as well, who is able to discuss these matters from a position of governance. We also have Maina Karobia, who is a political analyst, and also Kelvin Kaya, who is the CEO of Youth Agenda, able to just tell us exactly what we're doing to protect the future of the youth, even as we tackle the whole issue of the coronavirus. However, right now, ladies and gentlemen, I want us to cross over to Rwanda, where we have Diana Iriza on standby. I wanted to give us at least an update on what is happening in Rwanda since the lockdown. Of course, we know that 2 new COVID-19 cases have been identified as of yesterday, and also there are enhanced COVID-19 prevention measures that the government has further introduced to cushion and protect people from the COVID-19 virus. Let's now cross over to you, Diana. How are you doing? I hope you're keeping well. Just give us an update, Diana.
Hi Leah, we're doing just fine. I hope you're good too. Now let me keep you up to speed with the coronavirus status here in Rwanda. Now the number of COVID-19 cases are increasing rapidly here in the country, I must say. And so far we have 19 cases of coronavirus. But the Ministry of Health has announced yesterday that these patients are under really good condition, and the symptoms are being treated in a dedicated hospital here in Rwanda. And these cases of 19 people with coronavirus here in Rwanda was announced on the 22nd of March, and that is yesterday. Now, on the 21st of March, the government of Rwanda released a statement saying that the country has to be put on lockdown. The statement was also saying that all unnecessary movements are prohibited here in the country. Public and private employees should work from home, and also unnecessary public transportation should also be minimized. Now, there is also a lot of concern in regards to panic buying. This is something that most countries dealing with coronavirus are dealing with. But the Ministry of Trade and Industry has set up a specific quantity of food products and home essentials that the locals should buy. It has also urged and cautioned retailers and wholesalers from using the coronavirus situation basically from taking advantage from this situation to increase the prices of food products and home essential products. And also, lastly, Leah, Rwanda happens to be one of the countries that are getting support and help from Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba Foundation. We're expecting to receive 10,000 test kits, 200,000 masks, and 1,000 medical use for all the medical workers we have here in the country. So basically, so far, that's the updates I can share with you. But I must say this is a really tough time for Rwandans and Rwanda as a country. But we hope to cooperate and fight this, and we also hope for Rwandans to keep practicing social distancing and self-isolation here in the country, and we hope in a short period of time we'll be able to beat this. Back to you, Leah.
Dana Riza for that update. That was our correspondent, TV47's correspondent, Dana Riza, all the way from Rwanda, Kigali in specific, and giving us an update there. She's mentioned quite a number of things, Ruth, Minor, and Kaya. I think this whole issue of hiking of prices is synonymous with most of the African countries, maybe even globally. We don't even know yet. But what do you guys have to say? Do you think the government is doing enough to cushion the Kenyans against persons who actually want to take advantage of the situation? I'll begin with you, Ruth.
Well, I don't think that proper measures have been put in place just yet, because remember yesterday when the Cabinet Secretary for Health issued the directive that public service vehicles are supposed to basically have not more than 8 passengers within, carry not more than 8 passengers. By the next morning, distances that normally cost 50 shillings to get to town were costing 200 shillings, and that was today morning. So I don't think that, and now it had to take the Cabinet Secretary to come back again and say, you know what, these directives do not mean that now you need to hike food prices. I remember yesterday when he gave his press statement, I had not gone to the market to buy some potatoes, and when I went, potatoes that I had bought 3 days before that were costing 50 shillings a can immediately hiked up to 100 shillings a can, meaning this is somebody who's selling stock that they had bought at the normal price at twice the price just because the Cabinet Secretary has issued a directive. So I don't think that proper measures have been put in place. But also look at the business owner's interest, in the sense that when you're saying that a matatu should only carry 8 passengers, normally this is a matatu that is used to carrying 14 passengers, meaning they have done their math and they know that out of 14 passengers and the number of trips that they do per day, they can afford to pay their turn boys, they can afford to pay the drivers, they can afford to pay get fuel to basically continue running. So when we are coming up with these measures, what is the government doing to elevate the kind of suffering that retailers are going to face in terms of their pricing? And right now, I remember I spoke to my parents back at home yesterday morning, and one of the things that my dad made very clear to me is that he spoke to a wholesaler, and the wholesaler was saying that the wholesaler informed him that if they don't buy food within the next 3 or 4 days, that the prices of food are going to go up because suppliers do not have enough to supply.
Ruth, that brings me to the next question.
Yeah.
And I'll just pose this question to you, Minor, because I think Ruth has highlighted some very pertinent issues there. There's the issue of supply. Of course, if I can just play the devil's advocate, some of these businessmen are, of course, afraid that they will not be making much money in the coming few days, right? And perhaps also the transport business. Some of them are worried that they're not getting enough passengers in their vehicles to at least be able to ferry some of them from one place to another. So, I don't know, Minor, what do you think will be the situation in the coming days, and how can the government best tackle it so that it's a win-win for everyone?
You see, first of all, Leah, is that I think Kenya, we are approaching this issue from a unilateral point of it. When I read how Rwanda, how South Africa is dealing with this issue, how Britain is dealing with this issue, how US is dealing with this issue, they have mandated respective ministers or respective cabinet secretaries to come up with measures that are going to mitigate maybe the consequences that are going to come up with this coronavirus pandemic. But then in our country, you find the Minister for Health is the one issuing directives on issues of transport. Mm-hmm. The Minister of Health is one giving directives on issues of economy. So we are working up the Minister of Health, that is CS Mutahi Kagwe. To my own analysis is that individual cabinet secretaries should come up with measures. Like for instance, the issue of public transport. What is CS James Macharia doing? What is CS for Treasury? I've never heard Ukuru Yatani talking about mitigation or coming up with the economic stimulus package. We are just leaving the CBK governor and also the CS for Health to come up with to tackle this issue. For my case or for my analysis is that each and every cabinet secretary who is going to be touched by this pandemic should come up with measures that are going to help our economy, measures that are going to help various sectors that are key to our country. Secondly, on the issue of public transport, Leah, I think the government should also come up with measures whereby at the end of the day, maybe the Matatu Association should be given periodic reports on how they are charging or how the whole sector is faring, so that we don't have a case like Ruth is reporting that a distance that was charging 50 shillings now is charging 200 shillings. So we need to come up with measures or mechanisms whereby various ministries are going to mitigate the consequences of this pandemic.
You know, Kaya, for you, I know you're into a lot of policy formulation, especially when it comes to the youth agenda and anything on development issues. Kaya, when you listen to what Maina is saying, he's talking about measures and mechanisms, but I want us to delve a little bit deeper into that. What kind of measures do you think we can put in place as a country that can at least cushion not just the business community, but those who are the recipients of the services?
Thank you so much, Leah. Before I respond to your question, I just want to appreciate there was a landlord who actually waived rent for 2 months for his tenants. I think as Kenyans, we need to start thinking in that direction to really help our people. And secondly, the issue that I wanted to raise out about government. You see the CS telling us that Kenyans who are maybe in contact of this coronavirus are quarantined, but at their own cost. I think as a government, we can do better. We need to have resources set aside, and even if it is possible, put aside areas where people can be quarantined, and at an easy and able amount of resources that people can afford. Now, on to your question. I think our government is also addressing our issues poorly in a disorganized way. We need to look at a programmatic approach to address this issue. We will not be expecting to receive statements from the Minister of Health, the Minister of Education, etc. There should be a government statement giving us solutions to issues that we have. For example, in taxation, business people are doing business. We recently had what we call the turnover tax, which needs to be paid whether you are doing business or not. Soon KRA will be on our neck for our annual returns for those who are doing businesses. I think it is important that the government now provides alternative laws that will be able to cap the business people from the losses that they will be experiencing. In agriculture, look at somebody doing a watermelon in Makueni and maybe probably is ready to harvest. How will that person go to the market when we are being told that now markets have been closed? How will that person reach their clients? And how will the clients know that the person has the products? So I think also in terms of using ICT and transportation, the members of parliament should look into looking at our laws and revising them so that we are able to have platforms to engage our people.
I know Maina has a comment on that, but Maina, I'll give you a chance after we take this short break, and of course we'll look a little bit more into the Kenyan situation, and I'll give you a chance, Maina, when we return. So let us just take this short break. We'll be back shortly after this commercial break. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching New Week right here on TV47. My name is Leangari. I want us to look at what some of you are saying online. We have quite a number of comments of people saying they're watching. We have here Emmanuel Simiyu. He's saying watching from Kihoto, Naivasha. We also have Hassan Abdi Kadir Malim was saying watching from Mombasa. Also Eliab Meli is saying he's watching from Eldoret. And also Kolo Torre is watching us right from Kibra, Lindi. Also Marilyn Margaret, thank you so much for joining us. Wycliffe Kiyapi. We have someone here, West Willis. He says, I haven't seen the government reassuring the citizens in case the situation moves from manageable to worse for like 1 to 2 months. The mitigation in place under lockdown as opposed to slogan, don't panic. Say, like, do we have food reserves, and for how long can that last? He has quite a number of questions. I'll just shoot it to you guys. Of course, that is a very, very valid question and concern that Kenyan there has. West Willis is saying that, the government is saying we should not panic. They are trying to contain the situation. But other people are wondering how long will this situation persist, and do we have enough food in the country to sustain different households? I'll just begin with you, Maina.
For me, what I wanted to say is that on the issue of economics or the state of our economy, I think the CBK governor or CBK itself as an institution should actually roar they should lower the cash reserve ratio to 2%, so that the banks, because for instance today I have heard that they have released that 2 billion so that they can boost the bank liquidity. They have also reduced the CBK rate to 7.5%. But I think they can do more. They reduce it to 2% so that the banks can have no option but to give loans to small, medium enterprises. And that way our economy is going to be boosted. Another thing is that the government should also reduce the cost of fuel, the cost of kerosene, the cost of diesel, so that, because fuel is the most important commodity in terms of running an economy. So I think they can reduce the cost of some of these basic things that are very critical towards driving our economy. Second thing is that on the issue of food reserve, right now there are some politics, some agricultural politics within the Ministry of Agriculture on whether to merge the strategic food reserve with the NCPB. So, and with that kind of politics, when we are having this issue of coronavirus, I think we are going to be caught up in those differences, and our people are going to suffer when they don't have something to eat or something to put on the table. I think the government should have a concrete and a clear mechanisms on how they are going to provide maybe the food to some of vulnerable counties or some of the vulnerable communities in our country.
Especially like the persons with a disability.
Exactly.
You know, Ruth, earlier on when we looked at what Ronald Miller from South Africa was talking about, I think also Diana Eriza from Rwanda mentioned the same, that there's a panic buying in most of these countries. And of course, I mean, many people are worried, will there come a time where there's not enough to go buy? Will there come a time when we actually can't literally leave the house? So what do you think the future looks like, you know, from a governance perspective?
I am glad that you actually asked, what do I think the future looks like? I think one of the things that African governments, and even to be specific, Kenyan government needs to do is now we really need to go back to our drawing board. There was a time when the slogan that, you know, agriculture is the backbone of the country was trending, and the government was actually doing something about it. One of the things that citizens had recently been complaining about was the fact that we do not think that the government is really investing or had done enough to invest in ensuring that agriculture actually becomes the backbone of our country. I think right now that reality has hit us, that we are not prepared. If on normal disasters that are preventable and foreseen, such as droughts, you know, and floods coming in, and heavy rains coming in and preventing, you know, harvests from taking place, are things that we usually find difficulties managing, to the extent that we even have to import maize. Now the reality is hitting us that borders are closing, countries are taking care of their own. So now this is the time that moving forward, African governments need to realize that there are critical services and essential aspects of the society that you cannot joke with. Number one, the food security of a nation, that at no point should the government ever find itself asking themselves that if something were to happen for the next 2 weeks, we do not know what to do. Number two, the healthcare system. You know, all this is pegged on a proper, how fighting this virus is pegged on how properly, you know, how properly designed and how properly managed and financed the healthcare systems are. Countries that have proper healthcare systems, such as Germany and even more advanced countries, and even some of the African countries, are able to beat this virus. Why? Because one, they have proper testing. They have, you know, proper testing mechanisms. They can be able to come up with quick, innovative measures when other countries are unable to provide solutions. But now down to the food situation. I think moving forward, government needs to heavily invest in agriculture and invest in it from the point of view of young people. We have a lot of land that lies bare. I like to mention facts and talk about them as they are. And one of the things that you know as Kenyans, when you travel across the country, especially when you're going towards the Nakuru side, Naivasha side, and even beyond, there's a lot of land that lies bare, nothing is going on. Now government needs to ask itself, moving forward, how do we ensure more youth are taking up agriculture? How do we ensure that we do have quick makeshift, especially right now? Let's talk about now and even the future. Now we are saying, how do we have quick makeshift, you know, reserves for perishable products? Because, for example, if we are to go to a total lockdown, and I do not like to be an alarmist, but going by what other countries are saying saying and doing and how they're responding, we might find ourselves in a situation where we are going to a lockdown.
All
What
right.
happens to cabbages? Do we have, you know, some reserves somewhere whereby we can reserve cabbages, tomatoes, and basic essential goods, and have personnel that are, you know, specifically tasked with ensuring that they handle these goods and are able to deliver them? And then again, also innovation and technology, because clearly if it gets to a point where we are on total shutdown, what will happen to food delivery services? Right now, remember, government has said they've shut down restaurants, but now when you talk about, you know, food services, I once knew of an application where one could shop, you know, agricultural products and have them delivered to their homes. The service shut down when they did not have customers, and now I'm sure wherever they are, they're thinking, why did we shut down? And now, you know, a situation has presented itself where we need to deliver this. So I agree. Before you let me go,
comments there,
yes,
Ruth. I mean, I think there's something else, you know, just a bit of digression there. We were just talking earlier on in our newsroom, and we were asking what is happening to the street urchins. Is there anyone taking care of them?
Exactly.
What is happening to the persons with disability? Looking at Turkana County, different places where we have persons with disability. And I'll just throw that question to you, Kea, into all the things that pertain to policy formulation. How do we protect these people who from vulnerable communities who probably don't have so many people to defend their rights?
Thank you so much. Just before again, just to remind us, you know, we just left another pandemic of the locusts. People have forgotten about that. And I think as a country, we need to develop proper response mechanism. We need an emergency response strategy that will prepare us to have avenues or ideas how to respond to emergencies in all sectors. And if possible, even have an emergency fund that is there that can be accessed. The other day, Central Bank released money to fight coronavirus. I've been keen. I've not seen clear communication on how this resource is going to be used to address this challenge. We've talked about the street urchins, the persons with disability. And normally, in most cases, and even the youth, they're normally being forgotten when certain issues like this arise, because those who speak more or those who tend to have opportunity more are addressed or helped. I am challenging the system and the government that we look forward at inclusive policies, include young people in policy formulation. For instance, now in county governments, most county governments have started to form their policies, particularly on culture, youth and persons with disability, as well as women. But you find that the people who are drafting these policies are probably maybe consultants who have just been drawn from elsewhere. They really don't know the issues. This is a time to call for inclusivity. And I think we have a member of parliament, and if you allow me to mention, Honorable Sankok, he should be speaking now loudly about specifically the people living with disability. Allow me also to add on again about agriculture. We laud the president for giving a young person a CAS position in the department, in the Ministry of Agriculture. But I think he can do more. We need such thinking that will help us to develop agricultural strategies that include young people in participating in food formulation, food preservation along all the value chains. I'm saying this because you will find that young people are being condemned for not participating in agriculture, yet there are challenges as access to land. How can the government work with private sector to provide land banks and to provide ICT apparatus that then help young people to produce food, dry them, maybe use solar, and even export them? I think it's important to do that. Thank you.
Maina, you know, Ruth is saying she doesn't want to play the prophet of doom role, saying we might end up in a lockdown, and we're not saying we'll end up there, but in case we do end up there, Maina, what do you think should be the situation? What measures and mechanisms do you think should be in place in case a lockdown does become our reality?
Like I said, is that the government needs to come out clear. They have a concrete position whereby they are going to maybe reduce the cost of some products, because when you have a total lockdown, it means nobody is moving. The economy is stagnant, or it has stopped to where it is. So, and right now we are talking of the growth rate right now has actually reduced. So it means even our GDP at the end of the financial year is going to reduce. So I think the government at this moment, they should have a clear position, whereby they are going to reduce the cost of basic commodities or basic products that are used at our households. Secondly, is that they should also reduce the cost of issues like electricity, cost of water. Also have an agreement with maybe landlords and tenants, because majority of Kenyans, they are in towns or in urban areas. So it means when we have a total lockdown, these people, they are going to be at home for like 2 months, or they are not going to be getting any income at their households. So I think the government should have an agreement or how they are going to sustain families at the urban areas, so that we don't have an economy that is going to collapse at the end of this pandemic.
All right.
The third thing is that, Leah, that we have been having finances for certain political activities, and allow me to say like BBI. But right now, we are grappling with the issue of people are complaining. Like today I was using a public matatu, and people are saying, how are we going to do this thing after one month? Because for this month we can sustain ourselves out of the salary that we are going to get. But next month, then month after next month, how are we going to live? And maybe most of us are in sectors that are only pay you on basis of whether you are doing, or on basis of you working or reporting to job. So for me, I think government should also come up with mechanisms on how they are going to sustain these families by maybe providing temporal finances to sustain these families.
All right. I want us to just jump into the presidential address today and just listen in so that we can actually also just highlight a few issues that were brought to the fore earlier on by President Uhuru Kenyatta. If my director can just play that clip by President Uhuru Kenyatta. Let's listen in.
My government continues to roll out a raft of measures to mitigate the disruption to our life arising from this pandemic. So in that regard, and indeed to foster communication and enable Kenyans to retain and enhance remote access to their offices and enterprises, my administration has granted approvals that will ensure that universal 4G data health coverage is available throughout our country. I want to once again and categorically reaffirm that the government will take the severest action against any individual who knowingly breach these laid down conventions and procedures, and in turn put the rest of the population at risk. Let us be our brother's keeper, let us be our sister's keeper, and I am sure that if we do this, we shall overcome this particular pandemic. The use of technology will increasingly become important. Only yesterday, the Kenyatta Diagnostic Center here at Kenyatta Hospital, where we have the CT scan center, we did, and it was the first to happen on the African continent using technology. They were able to remotely conference with 3 centers in China, one in Egypt, another in France, and also with Eldoret, Moi Referral Teaching Hospital, where they were able to exchange with professionals and clinical officers across the world to share both experiences and practical ways in which we can defeat this virus that is upon us. So the use of technology will continue to become increasingly important as we move forward.
Well, listening to that address, before we even go into that address, you know, when you look at something like this on Twitter, where it seems like people are actually making fun of the government's efforts to fight or contain the coronavirus spread. So the caption here says, President Uhuru Kenyatta government trying to fight coronavirus. I mean, this is what Kenyans think. Yes. And I think, there's also another concern that people had on Twitter. I mean, we hear it's great news, of course. The government is doing a lot. However, to represent the voice of some of the Kenyans, they're asking, what about rent? What about food? You're telling us about 4G network, but we're not sure how we're going to sustain ourselves in terms of food, water. What do you guys think about the presidential address?
Well, first, I think I'd love to go first because I have become very critical about how we as Kenyans respond to everything. I think we really need to realize that we are beyond the cracking jokes and laughing about everything at this point, because every other country is taking this very seriously. And the other thing we need to understand is that there really isn't any proper formula for how a government should be able to respond to the various issues that are arising. I am sure that wherever government is seated, there are people discussing and asking themselves, how will we ensure that there is food security? But we cannot underestimate the value of having internet connectivity. If you are serious and are watching, or rather trying to interact with other countries as to how they are managing the virus, it is actually becoming very clear that internet and proper internet connection is one of the greatest invention, or the greatest solution that they could have at the moment, because in other countries things are worse and they can only rely on proper internet connection to continue working away from home. And I don't think we have taken working away from home seriously, and that is why it will remain a joke, because some people still can access offices. What if it gets to a point where 2 months down the line, really we really don't know how far this will go, but 2 months down the line, nobody is going to offices. How do we continue working? Because remember, regardless of the situation at hand, a government really needs to continue performing and working. I think what we should do as Kenyans is be very patient and wait to see the next government directives and moves. But there are some things that we cannot compromise about. For example, one of the directives that Kenyans have been arguing about and really stressing on is the fact that why are we giving a period between now and Wednesday to start locking down our airport? We should have done that the moment we had the very first patient. In fact, the fact that there is still a gap for flights to come in till Wednesday means that we are allowing in a huge influx of people who will say there is a gap that Kenyan government has allowed us to come back and come in and continue spreading the virus. So I think what I'm trying to say is that as Kenyans right now, the greatest thing we can do is solidarity with our government. Ask ourselves, what can we do to help our government and even continue building the economy?
I want to hear from Kea, because of course, I mean, some people are just wondering, you're telling me about network, and then I'm here trying to figure out what I'm going to be eating in case we get on a lockdown and in case we can't actually move in the streets. I mean, Kea, what are your thoughts?
Thank you. One of my friends says that things don't go wrong, they start wrong. I think as a government, we started wrong. Watching the president today, actually, after keeping us long waiting for his speech, I was quite disappointed, but I can mention that his shirt was really good. I appreciate that. So the issues are there. We need internet, which is good, and I think young people can take advantage of the internet to really do online jobs, to take up skills on education. There are a lot of courses being run online that they can take up. They can also decide to do virtual meetings, of course, to stop meeting in town or meeting elsewhere. But there are big issues. I think, as I mentioned, the government need to come up with a strategy. I expected from the president today to tell us, we are projecting that we can have a lockdown for a period of 3 or 2 months. And during this time, these are the interventions that we have put. 1, we are going to bring relief food to particular zones of our people, and maybe 2, we are going to establish more testing points so that more Kenyans are tested and we are able to contain this virus. Another point may be to set up virtual lecture systems or a curriculum system so that if somebody is in Dandora or somebody is in Turkana, the kind of curriculum that they are receiving is the same curriculum that probably will be tested at the end of the day.
All right, Maina.
Yes.
I mean, when you look at the president, of course, being in that particular position at such a time is not very easy. What do you think is going through his mind at this moment?
Well, I must be brutally truthful to you that I think the president was insensitive with the matter. At this point of moment, Kenyans expect solutions to the issue at hand. They want to hear government position on how we are going to tackle this or contain the coronavirus. But coming to tell, as a head of state or head of government, telling Kenyans that we have made a deal with Google on how we are going to roll down the 4G network. I think Kenyans will feel you are not in touch with the issue at hand. So I think it was a bit insensitive. If announcing this issue to Kenyans was really necessary, the minister or the CS for ICT, Joe Musheru, should have announced this. What we expect from the head of government, that is President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. We want to hear what his government or what his administration is going to do to tackle this issue. Like for instance, right now, I was comparing with what Donald Trump and what Boris Johnson is doing. Like Donald Trump, last week, he was talking on how he was reassuring Americans how he is not going to let them down. He was giving them hope that as long as he is the president, they are going, as the US, they are going to defeat this coronavirus. And that he was even commending the men and women of United Parcel Service who are supplying basic medicine and foods to US citizens. He was commending them for the good job. For Boris Johnson, he was talking to the businessmen or employers there to take care of workers' rights and workers' issues as they tackle this pandemic. But when you hear the president of Kenya talking of 4G, Kenyans will feel, are we really in the same world? Are we tackling the same problem that is facing the world? So I think for me, for president coming to announce to us that they have made a deal with Google.
What would you have expected? You know, as we come to an end, what would you have expected to hear from him?
What I expected from him as the head of government, I expected him to tell us that my government is pleased to have allocated certain amount of funds to KEMRI or various university departments of health in terms of researching for treatment of this virus. They have allocated certain funds or certain funds to the task force that is containing this coronavirus as a way or as a mitigation measure so that it doesn't spread to more Kenyans. That way, we will feel our president is in touch with whatever is at hand with the Kenyans. So I think when the president is talking to us in the next 1 month, he should be giving us solution to this particular matter. If it's an issue of government making deals or doing certain developments, let it be done by respective cabinet secretaries. All
right. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a very insightful discussion. That was Maina Karobia, who is a political analyst, and of course we also had Ruth Mbogo, who is a governance specialist, and Kelvin Kea, who is the CEO of Youth Agenda. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I remain in quarantine, by the way. Hatutaki kusikia kama umetoka.
Don't call us again.
No, I'm going to call you back again. We're just going to observe the measures, you know, the directives as they've been given. But I'm very grateful for all of you making time tonight and just getting out of your houses. You know, I know there's a lot of fear across the country. Even just driving through Nairobi, you get to feel that there's that heaviness of some sort of fear and panic. But we hope that this issue will be resolved very, very soon. Thank you again. Mine, I know you want to say something, but let's just reserve those comments for next time. This has been New Week. My name is Leangare, and we appreciate your time. My sign language interpreter tonight has been Josephine Ouko. Remember, New Week every Monday at 9 p.m. right here on TV 47. Thank you for watching. Have a good night, and God bless.